Off in an unknown server, a Net Police Navi tries to meet undercover with a black market dealer specializing in dark chips. That Navi being Needleman. Later, we cut to Neto watching some other kids net battle, troubled over his latest assignment. That the dark chip mess is no longer contained to just the Darkloids, but normal Navis and their operators are now getting their hands on them. With that prior police Navi not being the first one crushed trying to find the seller. Though it would probably help them if they didn't look like Signal Man from the Sentai series Car Ranger and its American adaptation Power Rangers Turbo. Or hell, any overtly police-themed mecha series like Pat Labor or Jay Decker. So yeah, because the Net Police can't, it's up to a 12-year-old boy to do it instead. But this has made Neto realize they don't actually know what a dark chip is. Not in the sense that they don't know what it does, they have seen what it does to Navis. But more in that they don't know anything about why they're being made or distributed and why they make the Navis that install them malevolent by default. And that's a smart way to write this. As the saying goes, the first step to wisdom is admitting what you don't know in order to understand what you need to learn. Thus, they've been staking out places where people net battle in the off chance someone came by and said, "Hey, kid, do you want Navi performance enhancers?" Cause let's face it, these kinds of storylines end up doing and showing that as allegory for drug dealers, only with the additional world domination spin on it. And I like their follow-up here too, and the line of thought that the most likely suspects are those who have had sudden out-of-nowhere winning streaks, as not everyone's built up the skill and ability of their Navis, and one using a dark chip would be less likely to be losing to normal Navis. And unless they were a jerk that wanted to preserve their trade secret, they could in turn learn from them where to get one. All in all, this is a smart Neto episode, as brought to us by Masashi Kubota. And sure enough, Neto happens to find one where that is the case, with his friends and Mariko watching the exchange? Did she do something with her hair? Maybe a change in makeup? Actually no, as the story reveals, this is the first appearance of Miss Yuriko, Mariko's twin sister, who is in fact working with the Darkloids, and using the guise of her nice, kindly sister to move around unnoticed amidst the populace. Not that the show reveals all of that at this time. What was up with Yuriko was more of an extended arc throughout Axess, with viewers presented the mystery of, with the relationship between the two. It's really only those fans that had played Battle Network 1 that would realize, hey, wait, didn't Miss Mari have a twin sister in that game that taught at a school centered in the city? And then come to realize they'd given the individual a complete overhaul into a new incarnation that allowed her to have an actual tangible character in her own right when she came to be used in the anime series, as opposed to just creating yet another character that would not have these advantages. World building. This series could at times be really smart with it, as it had to spend more time expanding on it than the games could. Initially though, the show was trying to sell the possibility of this being Mariko instead, trying to pull the fake out that this might be what Mariko's like when she lets her hair down, and the somewhat ditchy school teacher might have more to her than might first appear, that she hides behind a carefree persona. Had they gone that route, it still would have worked with how this was being executed, as I have seen other series where that works. But taking advantage of the sister thing instead, I feel was a bigger boon, as it allowed them to play with that idea and deception, seed doubt in the audience's mind that would engage them to see if that was true, and then pull the grand reveal that there's just a twin out there with her face that decided to take a walk in the dark side, with following elaboration making it not feel like they were copping out about it. And players of the games could in turn showcase that they didn't necessarily pull this out of thin air for a cheap twist.
やっぱり見間違いか。世の中には自分そっくりの人間が3人はいるって話よ。
And sound. Most of my relatives think I sound exactly like my dad, just a bit more nasally. But yeah, the kid with the hostile Navi has a dark chip, and when the Navi goes berserk, the dark chip overloads the PET, destroying it and causing the operator's Navi to run off. having been turned malicious due to the influence of the Dark Ship, and separated from their former partner as a new solo Navi and Darkloid. As Neto retrieves the Dark Ship, the operator runs off, seeing Yuriko in the background leaving and chasing after her, with Yuriko also realizing that Neto might have caught sight of her from the operator's reaction, her calling her boss to report this, who in turn decides to test the young net saver to allow Yuriko a chance to fade into the background while abandoning this means of Dark Ship distribution now that they've been made. Neto does ask Mariko, though, if she was there, the series attempting to see the sister story here with her almost revealing it, but being cut off by the school bell that requires them to prioritize the daily grind. Another smart thing to keep the mystery that was the Hook arc going, instead of just letting it all out at once. The scenes of Mariko at school intercut with jumps to Yuriko distributing more dark chips to net battlers that makes their navis turn evil. These cuts done in such a way that it infers that this isn't occurring simultaneously, but instead over time, once more distorting perception of whether they are the same person or meant to be different. Rin and Kifune discuss the results on the analysis of the dark chip Neto brought in, and it doesn't look good. A lot more chips with their exact signature are popping up all over the place, with seemingly no pattern to them. Meijine's analysis in turn showing that when it powers up a Navi, it does so by consuming the emotional data of said Navi, severing the AI's feelings of possessing a bond with their operator, and turning those feelings inwards, allowing them to act with sociopathic malice.
そっか、あのナビ、心が壊れたから、あんなひどいことを。
In trying to find the operator from before, Neto sees him confront Yuriko, who Neto again mistakes for Mariko despite how her hair is styled, being into a twisted ponytail instead of curls, and thus overhears that operator identify her as the distributor. He tries to confront her, but she flees with the power of parkour, her long black jacket obscuring her features enough that Yuriko can slip into her disguise as her sister, only tipped off by how her hair reminds one of croissants instead of egg rolls. You can see how this would be an effective disguise, too, as I joked about earlier. People wearing their hair differently on different days is a thing, after all. We just don't see it much in anime, though it has slipped in more as time's moved on, because consistent appearance in character models is often used as a visual shortcut due to everyone being drawn in a consistent art style in a given series that can't draw out distinct facial features. Thus, we look for different visual cues to catch who is who. For the twin sister thing, when the twin sister angle can't be presented through facial features, a minor stylistic difference with regards to hair when one is trying to look like the other makes the most sense for a visual cue to give the audience what wouldn't in turn tip off those around them. Though it could make less sense in other series depending on the visual cue. An example, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V could get downright silly with how the dimensional counterparts Yuya, Yuri, Yugo, and Yuto all had the same face, but wildly different hairstyles and dress sense. And yet the characters in the show had difficulty differentiating the four despite those visual cues. It was worse with Yuzu and her dimensional counterparts in that show, as then they took body type into account as well, yet still treated them as all being identical. And yeah, she uses this to throw Neto off her trail, and lead him into a trap, by faking Mariko being abducted by the true culprit, pretending to lock herself in a freezer, while still in disguise, to allow her Navi, Needleman, a chance at deleting Rockman in battle in the same way said Navi eliminated the other Net Police's Navis. After all, they wouldn't be able to distribute them to the unawares if it became common knowledge what the consequences of their use are. Then again, in the real world, there'd still be idiots and conspiracy theorists that would dismiss reports of the damage they do as fake news. I really feel like we're in the worst timeline sometimes. If you're wondering, the odds are Needleman and Yuriko have more of a working relationship between them that is different from the bonds the dark ships normally destroy. That's why Yuriko can have a Navi that can appear to use one without going completely rogue. But by this point, Neto and Rockman have gotten more used to finding dark chip-enhanced navies, so it's up to Needleman's unique skills to screw over chances of an easy win. Thus, they've got to do something fast to save Mariko. This releases the lock, letting her out, but Neto focusing on Mariko lets Needleman get in several more hits, leaving Rockman at a disadvantage, which allows Yuriko's true plan to show itself, offering Neto the temptation to use the dark chip himself, lest Rockman be deleted. And the scene is good. It is well-paced, the music ramping up the tension, appropriately dragging out Neto's hesitation, as if he's actually considering it and weighing the pros and cons of that action. However, yeah, you're going to have to wait until stream to actually see the character's Dark Soul.
Rockman がデリートされてもいいの？別にいいじゃない。心なんかどうなったって、ロックマンが助かれば。
Plot point. Hopefully I will remember to talk about this when we get to when it's relevant, but yeah, they had a much longer arc plotted out than is present in just Axess. And yeah, this is where Neto realizes that this is someone disguised as Mariko and not the woman herself, though that won't stop Yuriko from using this disguise in the future. But damn, can that woman jump. Though, to refute the idea that strength is all that matters, Neto finally pulls out his soul chips to turn the battle back in their favor, with Roll Soul buffing Rockman beyond the damage Needleman can deal, and Fire Soul would have dealt double damage to Needleman's elemental weakness, had Yuriko not withdrawn when she lost the initiative, slipping once more amidst the populace. With Neto running into Mariko again instead, and revealing she has, or rather, had a younger sister, who died when they were children. Leaving once more the question of how she still lives, as another familiar face lost in a crowd. The wrap-up. We have Doppelganger Syndrome, to the introduction of Yuriko Ozono and her use of her sister's identity as the disguise. We have same type attack bonus, to Needleman attacking with needles, and more needles. And we have superpowered evil side, the net navies that went bad due to a malicious power-up. This episode, as you can tell, is what I more expect from the series, with the arc revolving around Yuriko being another one that takes more than just this season to resolve, with an antagonist that bears a more complex backstory than the Dark Lords on their own bear, which is tied deeply into the main story's progression and resolution, while also answering the means by which normal navies that weren't already part of the Dark Light forces are getting infected. Or much like Bullman from the prior episode, how many navies may have come to join the Dark Light forces after abandoning their friends and operators. Yuriko's own motivations for this come to be revealed with time, as do her own moral standards, as she is later shown to have them, even if she is a bad guy here. And I really do hope to remember to talk about that when it becomes relevant too, as it does explain a lot about why things go the way they do with Axess, that once more is a part of the long game Araki and those in his camp with the series were trying to build. Sadly, context of that is unfortunately lost with the dub. Intentionally or no, while the dub of Axess was better and less revisionist than the former season, a lot of key parts of the dialogue were changed from what was being originally said. The result consequence being that, alongside stream not being important to Western markets, that said viewers were not given insight that something bigger was going on, or possibly being prepared for. It would be poor of me to address that now, unlike some things I normally end up giving away, but the best thing it reveals in the long term is the net navies aren't the only ones being corrupted by the power of dark chips, which we in turn will see with time.